Snow-covered Seoul, like a funeral shroud on Christmas night. Inside a cramped studio apartment, Maria moved with the careful precision of someone trying to hold broken pieces together. She'd spent her last one on discount decorations, paper snowflakes she'd cut by hand, and ingredients for a meal she'd rehearsed 3 times. Her fingers still bore small cuts from wrapping the gift that sat waiting on the table. A simple leather wallet. 3 months of saved lunch money. She checked her phone again. No message from Mark. She smoothed her hair in the mirror, practiced her smile, and told herself tonight would be different. Tonight, he would see how much she cared. The food grew cold. She reheated it once, twice, 3 times. Each time, her smile became harder to hold. When the door finally opened at 11:47 p.m., Mark's face told her everything before he spoke. "You're home," Maria said softly, her voice carefully cheerful. "I made your favorite." Mark dropped his bag without looking at her. He scrolled through his phone, his jaw tight with irritation that had nothing to do with her but would soon become about her. It always did. "I got you something," Maria continued, her hands trembling slightly as she lifted the small wrap box. "For Christmas." Mark's eyes flicked to the modest package, then to her face. Something cruel flickered in his expression. "What is it?" "A wallet. I noticed your old one was falling apart, so I thought—" He snatched it from her hands, tore the paper carelessly, and held up the brown leather wallet with the kind of disgust usually reserved for garbage. "This is what you bought me? This cheap thing?" Maria's breath caught. "I saved for months." "Saved what?" "Your pocket change." Mark's voice rose with each word. "Do you know how embarrassing this is? My friends' girlfriends buy them designer watches, luxury items, and you give me this." "Mark, please." "I did my best." "Your best is pathetic." He threw the wallet on the floor. It landed near her feet like an accusation. "Everything about you is pathetic. This apartment is pathetic. This sad little meal is pathetic. You're pathetic." Tears burned Maria's eyes, but she blinked them back. "It's Christmas. Can we please just—" "I don't care what day it is." Mark grabbed her coat from the hook and shoved it into her chest. "Get out." "What?" Maria's voice broke. "I said get out. I'm done with you. Done with your poverty, your neediness, your embarrassing attempts to play house." He grabbed her arm, yanked open the door, and the freezing night air rushed in like a slap. "Mark, it's snowing. Please. I have nowhere." He pushed her into the hallway. Maria stumbled, barely catching herself against the wall. She turned back, her hand reaching for the doorframe, but Mark shoved her again, harder this time. She fell backward onto the snow-covered steps outside the building entrance. "Don't come back," Mark said. Then he slammed the door. The sound echoed through the empty street, like a gunshot. Maria sat in the snow, her body shaking, her mind unable to process what just happened. The Christmas lights from neighboring windows blurred through her tears. She could hear laughter from nearby apartments, families celebrating together, the life she'd never have. Slowly, Maria stood. Her legs felt disconnected from her body. She pulled her thin coat tighter and started walking. She didn't know where. She just walked. Each step pressed her shoes deeper into the snow. The cold seeped through the worn soles, numbing her feet. Her breath came out in ragged clouds. The wind cut through her coat like it wasn't even there. People passed her, couples holding hands, families carrying shopping bags, everyone wrapped in expensive winter gear. They didn't see her, or maybe they saw her and looked away. Maria kept walking. Her mind replayed Mark's words on an endless loop. Pathetic, embarrassing, cheap. The words felt true now. Maybe she was all those things. Maybe she deserved this. The streets grew quieter. The snow fell harder. Maria's body began to betray her. Her fingers stopped feeling cold and started feeling nothing. Her legs moved slower. Her thoughts grew fuzzy. She saw a bus stop ahead, but when she reached it, she realized the buses had stopped running. Everything was closed. Everyone was home. Everyone except her. She had no friends in Korea. Her family was an ocean away, and she couldn't afford to call them, couldn't admit she'd failed this badly. She had $17 in her bank account. Not enough for a hotel. Not enough for anything. Maria's knees buckled. She caught herself against a street sign, but her grip was weak. Her vision swam. Through the falling snow, she saw lights ahead, gold lights, bright and warm. A large building stood before her like something from another world. Expensive cars lined the street. Men in black suits stood at the entrance. Music pulsed from inside. A nightclub, a luxury nightclub. Maria's feet carried her forward without conscious thought. Maybe there would be warmth there. Maybe someone would help. Maybe she could just sit in a corner until morning. She climbed the steps slowly, each one harder than the last. The guards watched her approach with suspicious eyes. She tried to speak, to ask for help, but her lips wouldn't form words. The world tilted. Maria's legs gave out. She felt herself falling, felt the cold steps rising to meet her, and then she felt nothing at all. The heavy doors of the club opened. Music spilled out along with warm air and cigarette smoke. 2 guards stepped outside, their conversation stopping abruptly when they spotted the collapsed figure on the stairs. What the hell? The first guard hurried down. Is that a woman? Looks like it. Is she drunk? The second guard kneeled, reaching for Maria's shoulder. Don't touch her. The voice cut through the night with absolute authority. Both guards froze, their hands jerking back as it burned. Footsteps approached, measured and unhurried. The air itself seemed to change, growing heavier with unspoken threat. Lee Jun stepped into the snow wearing a black coat that probably cost more than Maria's yearly rent. Silver rings caught the light on his fingers. His face remained expressionless, but his eyes scanned the scene with the precision of a man who missed nothing. People feared Lee Jun. They feared him the way you fear a loaded gun, the way you fear deep water, the way you fear things that can end you without effort. But when his gaze fell on Maria's collapsed form, something flickered in those cold eyes. Something almost human. Lee Jun stood motionless, studying the woman before him. Snow had settled in her hair like tiny crystals. Her lips held a blue tinge. Her clothes were soaked through, cheap fabric offering no protection against Seoul's brutal winter. She wasn't drunk. She was dying. What happened? Lee Jun's voice remained quiet, but both guards straightened to attention. She just collapsed, boss. We were about to move her when you... Move her where? The question held an edge sharp enough to cut. The guards swallowed hard. Away from the entrance. Boss, she can't stay here. Why not? The question hung in the cold air. Neither guard dared answer. Lee Jun kneeled in the snow, his expensive coat touching the wet ground without hesitation. He brushed hair away from Maria's face with surprising gentleness. Her skin felt like ice beneath his fingers. Get a doctor, Lee Jun commanded. Now. Boss, wouldn't it be faster to call an ambulance? I said get a doctor. Bring him here. Lee Jun removed his coat and wrapped it around Maria's trembling body. The gesture stunned everyone present. Lee Jun never gave anything to anyone. His coat alone was worth thousands. Everyone else, go back inside. Close the door. No one speaks about this. Lee Jun lifted Maria into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, which made his jaw clench with anger at whoever had done this to her. Boss! One guard started. She stays with me. Lee Jun's tone ended all discussion. He carried Maria through the club's back entrance, away from the main floor where hundreds of people drank and danced. His most trusted men followed at a distance, confusion written across their faces. Their boss had just rescued a complete stranger, Lee Jun, who once left a rival to freeze in an alley for 3 hours to teach him a lesson. Lee Jun, who built his empire on the principle that mercy was weakness. That Lee Jun now cradled a dying woman like she was made of glass. The private wing of the club held rooms no regular patron ever saw. Lee Jun's personal quarters occupied the top floor, a space of clean lines and expensive simplicity. He laid Maria on the leather couch and covered her with every blanket he could find. Her breathing came shallow and uneven. Her body shook violently despite the blankets. Lee Jun stood, his hands curling into fists. Where is the doctor? 5 minutes, boss. Those 5 minutes felt endless. Lee Jun poured warm water, found clean cloths, and began carefully wiping snow from Maria's face and hands. Her fingers were red and swollen from cold. Bruises marked her arms, old ones fading to yellow, newer ones still purple. Someone had hurt her before tonight. Someone had hurt her repeatedly. Lee Jun's expression never changed, but something dark settled behind his eyes. Something patient and cruel. When Dr. Yoon arrived, he worked quickly, checking vitals, warming Maria's core temperature with heating pads, starting in 4 drip. She has moderate hypothermia. Another 30 minutes, and we'd be talking about permanent damage or death. How long was she outside? I don't know, Lee Jun said quietly. Well, someone wanted her dead. Dr. Yoon packed the supplies. She'll need rest, warmth, and food. Keep her here for at least 3 days. After the doctor left, Lee Jun sat in the chair across from the couch. He didn't move. He simply watched Maria breathe. Each breath proved she was still alive. His mind worked through possibilities, constructing and discarding scenarios. Who was she? Why was she outside his club? Who hurt her? Hours passed. The club noise faded as morning approached. Lee Jun stayed awake, watching over a woman whose name he didn't know, driven by something he couldn't name. It felt like looking in a mirror that reflected the past. He remembered cold nights, years ago, before power and money. Nights when he had nothing and no one. Nights when he would have died if someone hadn't helped. Maria stirred as dawn light crept through the windows. Her eyelids fluttered. She made a small sound of confusion. Lee Jun leaned forward. You're safe. Maria's eyes opened. For a moment, she stared at the ceiling, disoriented. Then awareness crashed back, and she sat up fast, panic flooding her features. Where am I? You're safe? Lee Jun repeated, his voice deliberately calm. You collapsed outside. I brought you inside. Maria focused on him for the first time. Her breath caught. The man before her radiated power and danger in equal measure. Sharp features, cold eyes, expensive everything. She pulled the blanket tighter. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I'll leave. You're not leaving. Lee Jun's tone left no room for argument. You collapsed in the snow. You nearly died. I had nowhere else to go, Maria whispered. Tears filled her eyes. She wiped them quickly, ashamed. I'm sorry. I'll go now. I won't bother you. Why were you outside? Maria looked down at her hands. My boyfriend threw me out. Lee Jun's fingers tightened on the chair's armrest. Why? Because I embarrassed him. Her voice broke. Because everything about me embarrassed him. Where is he now? Home. In our apartment. His apartment. Maria's tears fell freely now. I have nowhere to go. No friends here, no family, no money. I just kept walking until I couldn't anymore. Lee Jun stood slowly. He walked to a side table and returned with a glass of warm tea. Drink this. Maria accepted it with shaking hands. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. Because, Lee Jun said quietly, I know what it's like when no one helps. Something in his tone made Maria look up. For just a moment, she saw past the cold exterior to something wounded beneath. Someone who understood. Thank you, Maria whispered. But I can't stay here. I don't even know where here is. You're in my private quarters. This club belongs to me. Oh. Maria's eyes widened slightly. Then I really shouldn't. You'll stay until you're well. Lee Jun's tone brooked no argument. Then we'll decide what comes next. I can't repay you. I have nothing. I'm not asking for repayment. Maria stared at him, trying to understand. Men didn't help without wanting something. That was the lesson Mark had taught her. The lesson every man before Mark had taught her. Yet this stranger, this obviously powerful and dangerous stranger, asked for nothing. What's your name? Lee Jun asked. Maria. Lee Jun. He nodded slightly. Rest now, Maria. We'll talk more when you're stronger. As Maria lay back down, exhaustion pulling her under, she heard him speak quietly to someone in the hallway. Find out everything about her. where she lived, who she lived with. What happened tonight? I want names and addresses by noon. Maria's eyes drifted closed, but his words echoed in her mind. She should have been afraid. Instead, for the first time in years, she felt protected. What happens when a woman discarded like trash becomes treasured by the most dangerous man in Seoul? Keep watching to see Maria's transformation. Maria woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of food. Real food, not instant noodles or convenience store kimbap, but something that made her stomach ache with hunger. She sat up slowly, her body still weak, but warmer than it had been in months, maybe years. The door opened and Lee Jun entered carrying a tray. He wore different clothes today, a simple black shirt and pants. His hair slightly damp as if he just showered. He looked almost normal, except for the way he moved, like violence was always an option just beneath the surface. "You should eat," he said, setting the tray on her lap. Rice porridge with vegetables, steamed fish, kimchi, warm tea, and fresh fruit cut into careful pieces. Maria's hands trembled as she picked up the spoon. "This is too much. It's breakfast. I can't." "Maria," Lee Jun's voice was firm but not harsh. "Eat." So she ate. Each bite tasted like more than food. It tasted like care, like someone had thought about what her body needed and provided it. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she ate. Quiet tears she tried to hide. Lee Jun sat across from her, watching. "The doctor said you're malnourished. When was the last time you ate properly?" "I don't remember." Maria wiped her eyes. "Mark said I ate too much, that I was gaining weight. So I started eating less. Then I started eating every other day. Then I just ate whatever was cheapest. A man who makes you starve doesn't love you. He's killing you." "Maybe I deserved it," Maria whispered. "Maybe I wasn't good enough." Lee Jun leaned forward, his intensity focused entirely on her. "Listen carefully. A woman who works hard, who gives everything, who tries her best is never the problem. The problem is the man who cannot see her value." Maria's breath caught. Those words cracked something open inside her chest. "I need you to tell me everything about Mark," Lee Jun continued. "His full name, where he works, everything." "Why?" "Because I want to know who did this to you." Fear flickered across Maria's face. "Please don't do anything. He'll get angry. He'll come after me. He won't touch you ever again." The promise in Lee Jun's voice was absolute. "You're under my protection now. No one will hurt you. You don't understand. Mark knows people. He has connections." Maria, Lee Jun's expression didn't change. "I am the connection people fear." The words hung in the air. Maria understood then, really understood, who had saved her. Not just a wealthy club owner, but someone who operated in shadows. Someone whose name made other people flinch. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt safer than she had in years. Over the next hour, Maria told him everything. How she'd met Mark at the coffee shop where she worked. How charming he'd been at first. How slowly the charm turned to criticism. The comments about her weight, her clothes, her accent, her work. How he'd convinced her to quit her second job because it embarrassed him. How he'd isolated her from the few friends she'd made. How last night wasn't the first time he'd pushed her, just the first time he'd locked her out. Lee Jun listened without interruption, his expression neutral, but his hands gripped the chair arms with increasing pressure. When Maria finished, he stood and walked to the window, looking out at Seoul's morning skyline. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. "Now rest. I have work to do." "What kind of work?" Maria asked nervously. Lee Jun turned back to her with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Business." After ensuring Maria had everything she needed, Lee Jun left the private quarters and descended to his main office. His second-in-command, Kim Tae, waited with a file folder. "I have everything you asked for, boss." Tae laid out documents on the desk. Mark Williams, 29, works at an American tech company's Seoul branch. Middle management, lives in Gangnam, rent paid by his parents in Chicago. Has a history of dating foreign women, particularly black women, usually those working service jobs. History? Lee Jun's voice was dangerously quiet. 3 relationships we could verify in the past 4 years. All ended badly. One woman filed a police report for assault, but dropped it after Mark's family lawyer visited her. Another left Korea entirely. Lee Jun studied Mark's photo. An average-looking white man with an arrogant smile, the kind of man who thought his passport made him special. He has patterns, Tay continued. Finds women who are isolated, builds them up initially, then tears them down systematically. Financial control, emotional abuse, occasional physical violence. Nothing that leaves visible marks usually. Usually, Maria had bruises. Old ones. Lee Jun's jaw clenched. What else? Mark's online activity is interesting. Posts on forums about dating Asian women. Except he specifically seeks out black women in Asia. Brags about how grateful they are. Uses dehumanizing language. Tay paused. He posted about Maria last month. Called her a charity case and mocked her for being poor. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Lee Jun stood perfectly still, but Tay had worked for him long enough to recognize the signs. His boss was furious in a calculated way that ended badly for people. I want surveillance on him, Lee Jun said quietly. Every movement, every transaction, every person he speaks to. I want to know his routine, his habits, his vulnerabilities. Already started, boss. Good. Lee Jun turned back to Windows. How is Maria doing? Dr. Yoon says she's recovering well. Physically, at least. And emotionally, Tay hesitated. She flinches when doors open suddenly. She apologizes constantly. She tried to clean the room 3 times until Min SCO convinced her it wasn't necessary. She's been trained to expect punishment. Lee Jun's voice was soft but cold. Mark trained her. What do you want to do, boss? Lee Jun was quiet for a long moment. Mark took everything from her. Her dignity, her security, her sense of self-worth. He threw her away like trash on the coldest night of the year. Yes, boss. So we'll take everything from him. Lee Jun turned around, his expression calm and terrifying. But slowly. I want him to feel it. I want him to know what it's like to lose everything piece by piece. Understood. How far do we go? As far as necessary. Lee Jun's smile was sharp. But nothing that touches Maria. She never knows the details. She only knows she's safe. Over the next 3 days, Maria slowly came back to life. Lee Jun kept his distance during the day, handling business, but he always returned for meals. They ate together, talking about small things at first. Maria told him about her life before Korea, her family in Detroit, her dreams of teaching English abroad. Lee Jun listened more than he spoke, but gradually Maria learned things about him too. He'd grown up poor in Busan, orphaned at 12, survived by doing things he didn't elaborate on, built his empire from nothing through ruthlessness and intelligence. He had no family, no close friends, just employees and enemies. Don't you get lonely? Maria asked one evening. Lee Jun considered the question. I did once. Then I stopped feeling much of anything. That sounds sad. It's practical. But Lee Jun looked at her when he said it, and Maria saw something in his eyes that contradicted his words. On the 4th morning, Lee Jun entered while Maria was trying to make the bed. Leave it. I should help. I've been here so long. Maria stopped. Lee Jun waited until she looked at him. You're not a servant. You're not here to earn your keep. You're recovering. I don't understand why you're doing all this. Maria sat on the edge of the bed. You don't know me. I have nothing to offer you. Lee Jun sat beside her, maintaining respectful distance. When I was 14, I was living on the streets in Busan. Winter came and I had nothing, no coat, no shelter, no food. I collapsed in an alley behind a restaurant. Maria held her breath. The owner found me. He was an old man, running a small business, barely surviving himself. But he brought me inside, fed me, let me sleep in the storage room. He did this for 3 months, until I was strong enough to work. He never asked for anything. He never made me feel like I owed him. What happened to him? He died 5 years later. Heart attack. Lee Jun's voice softened almost imperceptibly. I paid for his funeral, made sure his wife was taken care of, but I never got to thank him properly. So you're helping me to honor him? I'm helping you because no one should die alone in the snow. Lee Jun met her eyes, and because when I saw you lying there, I saw myself. Maria reached out and took his hand. The gesture surprised them both. Thank you, Lee Jun, for saving my life. You're welcome, Maria. His fingers closed gently around hers. Now I need to tell you something. What? I've been making inquiries about Mark. Lee Jun watched her carefully. I know what he did to you. I know it wasn't just one night. It was months of abuse. Maria pulled her hand back. I asked you not to, and I'm telling you he won't hurt you again. Lee Jun's voice was calm but firm. He won't hurt anyone again. What are you going to do? Nothing you need to worry about. Lee Jun stood. But I want you to understand something. You are safe here. You will remain safe. Whether you stay a week, a month, or a year, you are under my protection. Mark cannot touch you. No one can. Tears filled Maria's eyes. Why? Why do you care so much? Lee Jun looked at her for a long moment. Because you remind me that I used to be human, before I became what I am now. Lee Jun's revenge is about to begin. What happens when a Mafia king decides to destroy the man who nearly killed Maria? Don't miss the dramatic conclusion. Mark Williams woke on Monday morning feeling pleased with himself. He'd spent the weekend with friends, told him he'd finally dumped his charity project. And everyone had laughed. Getting rid of Maria had been the right move. She'd been dragging him down for months with her poverty, her neediness, her constant gratitude that made him feel guilty for being born into privilege. He showered, dressed in his expensive clothes, and headed to work. His day started normally. Coffee with the management team, emails, a few client calls. Then at 11 a.m., his boss called him into the main office. Mark, we need to talk. 30 minutes later, Mark walked out of the building carrying a box with his belongings. Fired. Effective immediately. Something about inappropriate conduct. A complaint filed against him, an investigation. They hadn't given him details. Just terminated his contract and offered 2 weeks severance instead of the 3 months he was entitled to. Mark's hands shook with rage as he drove home. This had to be a mistake. He'd call his father, get lawyers involved, fix this. But when he arrived at his apartment building, the security guard stopped him. Mr. Williams, I have instructions that you're no longer permitted access. What? This is my apartment. The lease was terminated this morning. Your belongings will be boxed and delivered to an address your landlord has on file. The hell they will. Mark tried to push past, but 2 more security guards appeared. They didn't touch him, but their presence was clear. Mark backed away, pulling out his phone to call his landlord. The call went to voicemail. He tried his father. Voicemail. His mother. Voicemail. Every call he made went unanswered. He checked his bank account on his phone and froze. Every account showed 0. Not overdrawn. Just empty, as if the money had never existed. Panic set in. Mark drove to his bank, demanding to speak with a manager. The manager informed him that his accounts had been frozen pending investigation into suspected fraud. They couldn't provide details, just that he should expect to hear from authorities soon. By evening, Mark sat in a cheap motel room he'd paid for with cash, staring at his phone as his entire life collapsed. His social media accounts were suspended. His credit cards were declined. His father's lawyer sent a terse email stating the family was cutting ties due to serious allegations and advised Mark not to contact him again. Mark didn't understand. He'd thrown out his girlfriend 3 days ago. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Meanwhile, Maria stood in Lee Jun's private quarters wearing new clothes he'd had delivered, simple but expensive, things that actually fit her properly. She looked out the window at Seoul's lights, feeling strange and untethered. Safe but confused, Lee Jun entered quietly. How are you feeling? Better. Stronger. Maria turned to face him. Lee Jun, I need to ask you something. Yes. What did you do to Mark? Lee Jun's expression remained neutral. What makes you think I did anything? Because you told me you would handle it. And because you're looking at me like you're waiting for my reaction. He smiled slightly. You're observant. So you did something. Yes. Lee Jun walked closer. Mark lost his job today. His apartment, his bank accounts, his family support. Everything he had is gone. Maria's breath caught. How? It's not difficult when you know the right people. Lee Jun's tone was matter-of-fact. His company received evidence of his online activities, the derogatory posts about women, the racist content. They terminated him to protect their reputation. His landlord discovered his lease was obtained through fraud, falsified income statements. His bank accounts showed suspicious transactions that triggered fraud investigations. His family received documentation of his pattern of abusing women, including you. That's not possible. That couldn't all happen in 3 days. It can when you have resources. Lee Jun met her eyes. He took everything from you, Maria. I took everything from him. That's justice. Maria sank onto the couch, her mind spinning. Is he okay? I mean, where is he? Do you care? I don't know. Maria looked up at him. I should hate him. Part of me does hate him. But another part wonders if this is too much. Maria, he left you to die in the snow. Lee Jun's voice was gentle but firm. If I hadn't found you, you would be dead. Your body would have been found frozen on my steps. That's what he did. He tried to kill you through negligence and cruelty. I know. Maria's voice broke. I'm not used to someone caring this much about what happens to me. Lee Jun kneeled in front of her, his eyes level with hers. Then get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere. Why? Why do you care so much about a random woman you found in the snow? Because you're not random. Lee Jun took her hands carefully. Because when I saw you, I saw someone worth saving. Someone who'd been told she was worthless so many times she believed it. I know what that's like, Maria. I know what it's like to be nothing to everyone. But you're a Mafia king. You're powerful. How can you know what it's like to be nothing? Because I was nothing once. Lee Jun's voice was soft. I was a starving child in an alley. I was a teenager who sold his body to survive. I was a young man who did terrible things, because terrible things were done to him. Power didn't erase that. Money didn't erase that. I'm still that person underneath everything I built. Maria squeezed his hands. Thank you for telling me. I need you to understand something else. Lee Jun's intensity focused on her completely. What Mark did to you, the way he treated you, the things he made you believe about yourself, none of that was true. You are not worthless. You are not embarrassing. You are not too much or not enough. You are exactly who you should be. Tears spilled down Maria's cheeks. I don't know how to believe that. Then I'll remind you until you do. Lee Jun brushed a tear from her face. Stay here. Stay with me. Not as a guest or someone I rescued, but as someone I choose to protect. For how long? As long as you want. Maria looked into his eyes and saw something she'd never seen directed at her before. Genuine care without conditions, without expectations, without hidden costs. What if I want to stay forever? Lee Jun smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Then forever is what you'll have. Over the following weeks, Maria's life transformed. Lee Jun enrolled her in Korean language classes, helped her find legitimate work teaching English at a private school, and gave her space to heal. He never pushed for more than friendship, never demanded gratitude, never made her feel indebted. But slowly, friendship evolved into something deeper. Maria found herself waiting for Lee Jun to return each evening. She noticed how his presence made her feel safe in ways she'd never experienced. She saw past his cold exterior to the wounded man beneath, the person who protected her fiercely because no one had protected him. Lee Jun, for his part, found himself changing. Maria's presence in his life softened edges he thought were permanent. He laughed more. He slept better. The darkness that lived inside him felt less consuming when she was near. One evening, 2 months after the night he'd found her in the snow, they sat together watching snow fall again. Maria had tensed when the first flakes appeared, memories of that terrible night flooding back. But Lee Jun had taken her hand, and they'd sat by the window until the fear passed. It's beautiful when you're warm and safe, Maria said softly. Yes, it is. Lee Jun was looking at her, not the snow. Maria turned to him. Lee Jun, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. I was so broken when you found me. I thought my life was over. I thought I was nothing. Maria's voice shook, but she continued. But you showed me I was wrong. You treated me like I mattered when I'd forgotten how that felt. You gave me space to heal and time to grow and protection when I needed it most. You did the healing yourself. I just provided the space. No. Maria shook her head. You did more than that. You showed me what real love looks like. Not the word Mark used while hurting me, but the action. Protection without possession. Care without conditions. Strength that defends instead of dominates. Lee Jun's breath caught. Maria, I love you. The words came out simple and clear. I love you, Lee Jun. Not because you saved me, but because of who you are. The man who carries darkness but chooses light. The man who is hurt but refuses to hurt others the same way. The man who saw me as human when I've forgotten how to see myself that way. Lee Jun pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with gentle firmness. I love you too. I've loved you since the night I saw you in the snow and felt something in my chest I thought had died years ago. They held each other as snow fell outside. Two people who'd been broken by the world finding healing in each other. 6 months later, Maria stood in front of students at her English school, confident and smiling. She'd gained weight, healthy weight that rounded her cheeks and strengthened her frame. She wore clothes she'd chosen herself, paid for with money she'd earned. She had friends, colleagues who respected her, and a life that belonged entirely to her. When she returned to Lee Jun's home each evening, because she'd chosen to stay, to build something real with him, she felt complete in ways she'd never imagined possible. Lee Jun had kept his promise. She was safe, protected, cherished. As for Mark, he'd eventually found work at a much lower position in a different city. But rumors followed him. Women in his new workplace knew to avoid him. His reputation preceded him everywhere. He'd lost the privilege of anonymity and the protection of his family's money. He was forced to live as he'd made Maria live, uncertain, struggling alone. Lee Jun never told Maria all the details of Mark's downfall. She didn't need to know. She only needed to know that justice had been served and she was free. One evening, as they prepared dinner together in Lee Jun's kitchen, Maria laughed at something he said, and he stopped to watch her. The sound of her laughter had become his favorite sound in the world. What? Maria asked, noticing his stare. I was just thinking about the night I found you. That terrible night. The best night of my life, Lee Jun corrected, because it brought you to me. Maria set down the knife she was holding and walked into his arms. Do you ever regret it? Taking in a stranger? Every day, Lee Jun said seriously. Maria pulled back to look at him, hurt flickering across her face, but he smiled. I regret that I didn't find you sooner, that you suffered as long as you did before our paths crossed. Everything I went through led me to you, Maria said softly. I don't know if I'd trade that pain even if I could, because it brought me here. You're stronger than you know. I learned from the best. Maria kissed him gently. You saved my life, Lee Jun. And I don't just mean that night in the snow. You saved me from believing I was worthless. You saved me from accepting cruelty as love. You saved me from disappearing. And you saved me from being nothing but darkness. Lee Jun held her close. You reminded me I was still human, still capable of love and gentleness and hope. They stood together in a warm kitchen, two souls who'd nearly been destroyed by cold cruelty, now healing each other with fierce protection and gentle love. Outside, snow began to fall again, but neither of them flinched anymore. Snow was just weather now, beautiful and harmless when you were warm and safe and loved. If this story touched your heart, please like and share with friends and loved ones who need to remember that sometimes the coldest nights lead to the warmest futures. Subscribe for more powerful stories of love, justice, and transformation. Comment below. What moment resonated most with you? Your support helps us create more stories that matter.